In this video, we're going to have a look at a Pales rails setup for hip external rotation with the leg elevated up on a box. So this setup is great for really learning how to irradiate and create tension when working on hip external rotations. There's a few variations like a 90-90 position or like a laying figure 4 stretch that you just might not feel like you're able to create much tension, whereas this standing position, because you've got so much of your weight over it, because you're in that standing position, you're really able to drive a lot of tension throughout the body and really maximize the force, the strength, the effort that you put in to this movement. So with this very basic sort of laying on the box in front of me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leg. You can see in terms of the box height, we ideally have something that's kind of close to hip height. This box is very easy to kind of change the heights and everything like that. You could also use a bench, for example, where you'd manipulate the kind of height of it. It might be more suited to sort of set it at kind of like a steeper angle at first. It would make it very easy for you on your hip if you found that it was very difficult, or you could set it lower, maybe go down from the knees and do it from there. That would be another way to set it up. But ideally, you've got something close to hip height that you could set this up on, and that would be perfect. I'm going to use a block here to kind of place it underneath the knee. If you kind of see from this position here, if I'm setting up and I'm trying to get into this position, I'm going to find it very difficult to maintain. I'm just not at that point yet in my mobility of my hip that I'm able to kind of tolerate that stretch for that period of time and create much tension. So what I've done to kind of make it more accessible or specific to me, I've set it up with a block. I'm still going to get great benefit from this getting into position, but not having the block would be that little bit kind of out of my league just for the time being. But from here, the idea would be if I get my ankle at a relatively sort of close to 90 degrees and I try to get my knee at 90 degrees. Now, where you set up is really important. If I set myself up kind of too far to the right-hand side, my knee is at a pretty acute angle. I'm not really going to feel myself getting into much of a stretch on the back of the hip capsule as a result in this position. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and actually move myself over towards the left-hand side. And that means that when I set up, I'm close enough to 90 degrees in terms of the angle at both my knee and the angle at my hip here as well. All we're going to do from here is fold over into position, but we're going to try and do our best to make sure that we don't fold at the spine and we actually fold at what would be sort of the hip and that sacrum there. We'll use the sacrum as a touch point to kind of help us get more of a stretch in this position. But let's go through sort of the linear process of getting into the stretch. We'll focus on the torso first, then we'll try to manipulate the sacrum second. But essentially all we're doing is performing a hip hinge. Provided we've set this up all right, you might even find straight away you don't have to focus too much on the sacrum, and all you have to do is worry about this fold forward to get into position. I can use my hands here on the box quite easily, but if you wanted to, if you didn't have the sort of support with the hands, you could get a stick of some sort. And the reason why is, once again, that later on that irradiation process, I don't want to find myself off balance in this position. I want to find myself stable and able to create tension from a good position, okay? But from here then, what we're going to try and focus on is get nice and tall with the spine, like your spine is being pulled up towards the ceiling. From here, fold forward. And in doing so, you can almost push your bum back a little bit behind you. Keep your chest up and elevated and keep yourself facing forward. Now, if you find that you're getting a good stretch at what would be like the underside of your bum, right deep within the hip capsule, perfect, you've got this ideally. But ways in which we can manipulate this. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to set our timer, and we're actually going to perform a Pales rail set. We're going to go through the sort of cues as we do it. So if you're doing this at home, you're set up, you're ready to go, you're in that stretch position, and now we're starting our Pales rails work. But ways in which we can manipulate this. So as I said, the easiest one to manipulate is that kind of fold at the torso. Essentially, I'm shortening this front side of my hip and I'm opening what would be this back side, this posterior side of my hip. And because of the position that my foot is in, I'm able to get a deeper stretch sensation into that hip capsule. Now, other ways we can do it, we can actually focus more on getting the belly button over the knee. I don't want to collapse and get my belly button away from my knee because that would sort of turn my sacrum the opposite way and that wouldn't help me get that deep stretch. So focus, if you want, rather than folding on at the torso, once you've got that end range position or what you feel is like your end range, slowly but surely try to push your belly button forward, almost let the lower back arch accentuate and get like a little bit bigger, and that would actually be more beneficial for you getting into that hip capsule. Another way you can think of it then, kind of like your third best option, would then actually be to tilt the sacrum. Focus on your tailbone going up towards the ceiling. So you've just focused on your belly button, that was one way. Second, third way, whatever way you want to think of it, if that we've got the torso fold as being another one, is to actually manipulate the sacrum. And kind of the last one would be focus on getting your knee towards the wall in front of you, or your knee away from your hip, and then your hip towards the wall behind you, or your hip away from your knee. That's one way I like to think of it, is my knee away from my hip and my hip away from my knee, and I'm just feeling all sorts of deep sensations within my hip capsule. I don't need to make many adjustments. You can see my position. I'm not folded forward here. I haven't just lost my torso position entirely. I'm actually facing forward. Now, our PAILS work that's coming up, remember, it's an isometric contraction. I'm gonna start driving down into internal rotation. So I'm gonna start driving my foot into the box. It's not gonna move, but I'm gonna first then inhale, pack it into my lower abdomen, create that tension in my core, create some tension in my upper body. 3, 2, 1, now I'm starting to drive. Like a dial of tension, I'm slowly turning up the volume. I'm driving my foot into the box, 10%, 20%, 30%, extra bit of effort every second that goes by. It's gonna beat me for 15 seconds. This is my halfway point. I'm super, super close to what's considered my greatest, safest max effort. I'm putting close to maximal force into the box, or what's considered my safest amount of maximal tension for today. Tension in the opposite direction, rails contraction. I want you to drive your foot towards the ceiling, drive your knee into the block or the box, whatever way you want to think of it, and fold your torso forward. Try to get a shorter angle on the front of the hip while trying to drive the foot towards the ceiling. Keep that tension, keep that tension. Don't come out of the position just yet. 3, 2, 1, hold still. Big exhale for me. Take a breath in again. Don't lose the position, don't come out of it. If you're absolutely dying, if this was too extreme a setup, if you didn't take my advice with kind of making it more specific to you, then you might have to get out of it. Obviously respond to your body if that's the way, but if you feel like you have control of it, like you can calm yourself down, like you can get your breath back, then that's what I want you to do. Big breath in, big exhale. Keep focusing on your breath. Nice long, prolonged exhales. From here, we're gonna get another round. We're gonna do 2 rounds of our PAILS rails contractions. We're gonna inhale, pack it into our lower abdomen, get some tension, irradiate tension throughout the entire body. 3, 2, 1, now let's start to drive. Same process again. You're starting to drive that left foot into the box. Everything that was just getting a stretch is now feeling that contraction. You're slowly ramping up. Every second that goes by, you're putting a little bit more effort into it. You're making sure you have that good position, you're not losing anything, you're not coming out of position in any way. Greatest, safest max effort. Push as hard as you comfortably can for today. Keep driving. 3, 2, 1, opposite direction, foot towards the ceiling, knee into the block. You're initiating more external rotation. While doing that, you're gonna try and get more of a fold, more of a tilt from the sacrum, more of your belly button over your knee. Really force into that end range position. Try to fight and achieve actively more external rotation. Big exhale for me, let it go. Big inhale again. Don't come out of the position just yet. Do your best to stay calm. Very heightened sort of ramping of the nervous system. It's quite common for us to feel very, very sort of like super excited after that, and we want to get out of it straight away. We don't want to spend much time there. But while also working on our sympathetic nervous system, we want to work on our parasympathetic nervous system. We want to slowly try to get ourselves to calm down, get good with our breath, get focused with our breath after that hard work. And that's my timer gone for me. We're going to come out of the position nice and slowly. We can sort of drive out of it. Get up nice and tall. You can either grab the leg, get rid of the block, however you can comfortably get out of that position. But hopefully that video was beneficial for you. Hopefully you should be feeling sort of lots of tension around the hips as a result of kind of pushing yourself for that PAILS rails work. Hopefully you feel like you've kind of opened up or you've garnered some new range in external rotation. So very good setup. Hopefully you found the same as well. You might have to manipulate a few things to sort of get the setup as optimally as I did, but that's always the case. It's all about finding kind of the position, the few different cues, the few different times you repeat it, how you've made it more specific to you, and how you've got more from it. So if you liked that video, be sure to leave a like on it. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have anything to ask. I'd be happy to help. But hopefully you found that beneficial looking at a PAILS rail setup for hip external rotation on a box.